What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dangerous When Focused podcast. Me, your host, Sean Bryan. This evening, I'm very excited to welcome on the main man, Marcus O'Leary. Marcus, how are you?
I'm really good, man. It's a pleasure to finally be sitting in this chair.
Yes.
You know, it's like I've walked past this window so many times and seen you inside. I've seen clips of the podcast, and also we've shared stages together.
Yeah.
I feel we grew up together as DJs, and now sitting here in your shop, it's deadly.
I know, it's funny. I always see you walking past, and it's weird. Nobody comes into my place of work and says hello because I wouldn't go into, I don't know, my mom's office and just say hello, but she's tipping away on this. But you are always, give me the wave.
Listen, I think it'd also be weird. You're somebody who bases himself on professionalism. It'd be weird if you stopped cutting someone's hair to say hello to them. And I would never.
Yeah.
No, but you know, I don't expect that. Like, listen, I'm very happy to go acknowledge. There you go. There's Shani.
Do you know what's mad? I think we actually tried to connect for season 1.
We did.
And it was the first time we were doing it. You're very, very busy, man.
Yeah, I was also super injured, man. It's like I was in bits.
You probably couldn't even walk.
I couldn't walk. Like literally. So we were supposed to do it on a Wednesday, and on the Monday, I had literally my back had gone into spasm on that Monday, and like I was really embarrassed by it. I was trying to make excuses, and like I remember saying to Rachel, my fiance, just being like, "Come here, I'm going to do the podcast." She's like, "You can't get up. Yeah. You literally
okay,
cannot."
That's a legit excuse.
Yeah. So I'm happy that in season 2, I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
The sun is shining, and we're here.
Amazing. Thank you. It's like, for me, again, just to recap, because obviously I know you from many different avenues, and the whole, I suppose, the DNA of the podcast is for me to actually sit down with people who I find interesting, but who I would have hung out and had many a chats and nights out, shared a stage with you very luckily, but to kind of just be like, who is Marcus, like, for my own personal
of course
information, but it's also good. It's very new to me to do it, and it's something that I really enjoy doing because I want to pick your brain for loads of reasons. Because my idea of you might be a lot different to what other people see because they just see your online persona.
Yeah.
I'm very glad to have gotten to know you a little bit better. And I have a story that I want to talk about a little bit later in the podcast. But to people who mightn't know you, because we do have a very random audience of people, how would you describe like who you are, what you do, and where you kind of come from? You are Dublin native, right?
So I'm Dublin native. I grew up not too far from here. I grew up in Dublin 8.
Yeah.
So just down the end of South Circular Road.
Lovely.
And so this area here on Lord Edward Street is the area I kind of grew up in.
Okay.
I went to school briefly in St. Patrick's. I went to Louis and Rathmines.
Literally, this is your neighborhood.
This was my neighborhood growing up, and it's my ma's French. I kind of moved to I'm half Irish, half French.
That's the very sexy name. I
Listen,
imagine.
No,
am I pronouncing it wrong?
No, O'Leary. It's like
O'Leary
is an Irish. It's an Irish name. Yeah. My full name.
Okay.
My full name is like my parents never married, so technically I took both their names. So my full name with all the extended remix bits is like Marcus Garvin Simon Louis O'Leary de Saint Michel du Nazar.
Man, what if you abbreviate that in? It's like, you know, like, yeah, get that. Imagine all the headlining gigs you do now would just be like, what?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, we need a second poster. Lads.
Yeah.
Get the billboard. Yeah.
I can only imagine, like, the back of the stage where it's like, who? Like,
yeah, no, man. I grew up city centre. I played music from when I was a kid. I started playing piano when I was like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Did lessons in St. Louis, and then I started singing when I was about 7. Became a chorister in the choir in St. Patrick's. So I was doing theory from an early age. Then started playing guitar when I was about 10 or 11. Then played guitar and played in bands all through to when I was like maybe 19, 20. Right. Started cooking when I was in my teens. Started getting a bit of an interest in that. My 2 grannies. My French granny was this mental woman who lived in this big house in France, and who was a classic French technique, everything. My Irish granny, Siobhan, incredible woman, 10 kids in a house in Finglas. So
same as my nanny, 10 kids.
So like, you know, it is that kind of thing that like,
Yep.
It is that whole 10 kids in a house in Finglas, and like cooked from our garden, had a vegetable patch, had this real connection to like seasonal food. And it's like, I think my love of cooking started with like watching these two amazing women cooking for people they loved. And then...
Were they both in Ireland? Or
No. My French granny was in France.
French granny was in France.
Yeah, she
was in
France, but it was like, you know, no matter where I went, there was always this connection with like feeding people because you love them and because you took care of them.
It's very homely.
It is homely, but it's like, it's also, it's real. And I think that like, that played a big part of who I am. But then my dad as well, my dad still technically is an architect. And he's also a really good musician. And like, I grew up very much surrounded by music and always saw music as a way to communicate as well. So like,
Leave that in.
so I always kind of saw music and food as a way to communicate and a way to like do that. So like, went through school, went through college, didn't really vibe with college too much.
What
Dropped
do you
it.
study in college?
I did a degree in music. I
Okay.
dropped out in third year. Was doing a joint degree in music and philosophy, and dropped out of that and to do stand-up comedy randomly.
Okay. So just to put in there, so I'm trying to think when I have guests on who I know or have met, I always try and say, did I ever cut your hair? I don't think I ever cut your hair.
No, you've never cut my hair.
We talked about it, and I remember you, if I'm not mistaken, you went to the Demon Barber.
I did,
and
Tom,
we all
yeah.
know people are very loyal to their barber. And I was thinking, I think Facebook, maybe start of Instagram for me,
Yeah.
I would have seen your name as a comedian. And
Yeah.
your name is so slick. You know, I think people would think it's like a nom de plume or a nickname. And my first
Really?
memory, I just think O'Leary, but it's O'Leary.
O'Leary, yeah, so Dunleary.
Oh, yeah.
I
I'm
pronounce
from
it
Dunleary, so-
O'Leary. It's a Kerry name. It's a yeah.
I wasn't sure, and I was thinking that just looks slick, but you know when you just see like John O'Shea or Paul O'Rourke, I'm just thinking. But anyway, I remember seeing your name probably on Facebook posts or like I don't know if you ever played Laughter Lounge or whatever it might be.
Yeah, good bit.
So I seen your name, and then I don't know how I entered me, but I think I goes, oh, this guy. I don't really remember the transition. Do you remember when we first met? Because I would have thought of met you online, so to speak.
I think the first time we would have met would probably be in Hanger, in the early days of Hanger.
Okay, and like the Craig Connolly promoters.
Yeah, maybe even
that's
kinda
where
like-
you kick. I didn't regular there I didn't actually DJ there ever.
Really?
No, and I never attended. But I know that whole what would you call it? Subculture.
I suppose
that age
the
group,
click.
Was it like techno and cans? But
Yeah, I think
there?
I think prior to that, I think so. I remember when pre-techno and cans, pre-everything, when Hanger first opened, I had one of the first residencies in there on a Sunday.
What was it called?
It was just a Sunday social kind of thing.
Okay.
And I remember it was like Willow was a resident as
Yeah.
well. Willow Healy, shout out to Willow.
Yes.
Incredible DJ and incredible man as well.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like I remember John O'Kiley, Willow.
Oh yeah.
And like I have some memory that maybe
I probably was partying around then and just out.
Yeah, that I probably would have met you around then.
Yeah, that's good.
But you know, it's kind of in that thing where you're like, you know, you're in your early to mid 20s and you're getting involved in the venue that everyone's involved in. Suddenly you meet somebody in a green room or an after session or a gig or anywhere where there's loads of people and loads of noise. And suddenly you're like, oh, I know that person, when you've actually never talked to them. You know who they are.
That's very
you know
true.
their business. You know what they do. You know what they're about.
Hey, you're a comedian or you DJ,
Yeah.
you're a barber, cut and sew. Yeah, okay. Because the origin of cut and sew, it's 11 years old and it's very important to me, the power of networking, who you meet. The beauty of Dublin can also be its curse where it's like, if you're a shithead, people are going to know about it. And you're very much not that. And it's like, I think anyone I want to connect with on this, I'm just like, tell us a bit of your story. Because I didn't know all of the shit that you just said there.
Sorry, I just kind of went and dumped a lot of my life story there.
No, that's the whole idea.
Yeah.
It's not just little bits for real. It's like the listen
Of
to get on
course.
the podcast is really good. It's about the
Yeah.
person in the seat. But my thing was like, okay, then because I wasn't really DJing around that time. I was like, I want to get into this, and I used to DJ as a kid before I quit. Like 13, I did like the school disco.
Right.
15th birthdays, I think 16s and 18s. And I remember going, this is amazing, but it was so hard to crack. I don't know if you remember, but I remember it was like you would send in tapes. Like I remember a tape was a mix.
I remember sending, I don't know if it was never taped, so it was like mixed CDs.
Mix CDs
Yeah.
and like, what were the mini disc and
Yeah.
playing in. I remember going to like Bondi Beach, like the Club 92,
Mm-hmm.
Paparazzi's. First gig I ever seen was Mark McCabe. Spoke to
Yeah.
Al Gibbs recently about that, and he goes, I remember that gig. was like an under 18. That was the first. Here's a question for you,
Yeah.
just because I'm going off. I went to that as my first gig, and I think I was 13.
Yeah.
And I'm 37 now, so that's 24 years ago. And of course, Maniac was the tune. Do you remember your first gig you attended?
That I went to?
Yeah, well, like
So,
disco.
I remember, discos. I went to like school discos and stuff like that. But, like, Wes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't
that
go
was
to Wes.
I went to one Wes, and so
Was
I went
it uproar?
No, well, I went to a rugby school, so but I wasn't a rugby player. Like I played a bit of rugby, but I used to row when I was a kid, so I was in boats. I was rowing.
I should hope you're in a boat.
Yeah,
yeah. Marcus, get off the pitch.
No, I rowed for Neptune Rowing Club down in Chapel Lizard, and I remember I went to one Neptune, or I went to one Wes, and I wore like a rowing T-shirt,
which is probably very cool.
Oh no! Now people would be like, "Man, where'd you get the merch?"
Yeah, is that total vintage?
Literally, people were like, "You fucking wanker!" It was genuinely like, I got the piss ripped out of me. It was like I went to one Wes, and that was it. Whereas like it was a big cultural thing. So I played in bands when I was a kid. I wasn't into dance music early.
This is so interesting.
I played guitar, I played drums, I played bass. I played a bit of piano. I was always very much into the live music scene before I was into the electronic music scene. And I remember when I started getting into electronic music, it was the likes of Transmission
with Trev Radiator.
With Trev, and like,
yes,
I remember. I distinctly remember they used to give out mix CDs at the end of the night. There was a Transmission,
which Trev
CD
probably made. Did he?
Trev probably made. Trev, who's now the manager of Fontaine's DC, and like now an international name in the music industry. Trev, I remember. Do you know Shinichi Osawa, Japanese electro DJ? There was a remix of Pogo by Digitalism on it, and I remember I was rowing at the time, so I was training Monday to Friday every evening, and then twice on a Saturday and Sunday. So I was training 9 times a week. I remember it was the time when iPods were kind of coming out.
Yeah.
I remember downloading this onto my iTunes, and this Digitalism remix of Pogo. I started running to it, and I found like the pace of it and everything, and the emotion of it really good. And like, then I started kind of getting more into like electro, more into I got really into dubstep quite early, into like bass music, into kind of two-step, into stuff like that. And then I suppose like, naturally I realized then growing up French and spending time in France, like a lot of my cousins would have been into like French hip hop, French house, French electro. So kind of realized that like, just through almost via osmosis, was growing up around that stuff and listening to it.
Okay, so like there's so many avenues we could go down, and as we said just briefly before we started, it's nice to keep these organic, because I was like, where will the conversation lead us? And in my head I was thinking, how do I talk about food, music, work, life, and shit in between? Music obviously is coming up loads, and I have a story to tell you. I remember when we were out and partying and like just being at festivals, I remember it was like, holy shit, this name is popping up. And I very admired you a lot. I was also a little jealous. I was like, this lad, I'm like, because I was like, in that scene, it's actually, there can be a lot of good in it. I think there's more good than bad. There's not much. Yeah. But I remember being like, oh man, how do you get into this, and how do you, and networking, I think is something I wanted to ask you about. Because I was like, you're super talented DJ. I've seen you rock many gigs. I remember playing before you, Paddy's Day for Jamie White.
Barn Dance. Oh no, that Jamie White.
And Barn Dance I played before you. I had the privilege of playing before you twice. And you're really good at, because in my head from the outside, and I was thinking, Marcus, I was like, so what's, like, not what's your job, but you can have more than one job. The same as myself. I think you don't have to be an accountant or a doctor. Well, maybe if you're a doctor, you probably don't want to be doing too many side hustles, right? I don't want to be going to...
coming into surgery straight off the session. Be like,
were you wigwam last night?
I do know doctors who are mad for parties, but I'm not going to name names.
But I would have seen you, and I was like, this lad's really good at DJing. But then I was like, hang on there, did he do stand-up comedian? Which I was like, yes. Yeah. So what is your job now, so I can kind of filter out where to go? Because I think you have about 6 jobs, do you?
I think this is one that I'm going to get rinsed in the comments on TikTok. I can already see it. It's like, I've always... So, the bit of backstory to this. Yes. I'll fully say that, like, when I was a kid, I wanted to go down this very traditional path. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be something kind of intellectually stimulating. And then when I was a kid, I started doing loads of magic mushrooms. So like when I was like 14, 15, I used to mitch off school and do shrooms. You could buy them in the head shops here.
Yes.
And I remember I had this moment where I'd had a load of truffles, and I was like, I was a kid, and I was walking down Harcourt Street, and at like 6 p.m, and a load of people in grey suits looking miserable, and I was like, I never want to do this. And I kind of made this decision to always just follow what interests me and like what stimulates me and what brings me joy. So
That's stuck with you.
Yeah, so like went to college, wasn't into what I was studying, was in Dramsoc. They did a stand-up comedy workshop with Conor McKenna, who's 1/3 of Foil Arms and Hog now, who are probably the biggest comedy act to ever come out of Ireland. They're selling out arenas globally. They're huge. But like did a stand-up comedy workshop with him, and like, you know, then I was like, oh, I actually really like this. And I did that, and I ended up getting to a point where I was making a wage from it.
Amazing.
And then I was like, oh, I really like music. And I've always been an awkward dancer. I've always been a bit sweaty. And I always like, you know, I love music, but I don't necessarily like being on the dance floor. So I was like, fuck, I'll give DJing a go. So I did that and kind of just figured out a way to get a gig or two. And then one thing led to another, and ended up getting a couple of residencies.
Yeah.
And then I was working in a lot of like service jobs at the time. I was working like, you know, because like comedy isn't going to pay. It'll pay some bills, but it's not going to pay all of them. Being a new DJ isn't going to do the same. So I was like, fuck, I'll get a job working in a cafe or something like that. Worked on the floor. Was decent at that. And then the place I was working, the chef, so the owner of the place, and it was his sister was the chef. And she would kind of work on like a 4-day rota with prep days. Their dad passed away very suddenly. They went back to Italy, and we were stuck without a chef. So I was like, put me in, coach. Stick me in.
I'm ready to, well, not ready to go, but I'm willing
and
to.
Ended up working in kitchens for like 4 or 5 years, and started doing a lot of private catering, private events.
As well as
But it was
gigging.
but it was like, it never felt like work. It was always stuff that like I got a real buzz off. And I think that's like,
How old were you around this time, or can you remember?
this was like early to mid 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, early to mid 20s. Where like I would be, I remember like I was resident. Do you remember Everleigh Gardens?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember
So,
Everleigh Gardens. Besides on Harcourt Street.
Yeah, on Harcourt Street. Yeah.
Yeah. Was
Where
that
the where
downstairs
the
or right
dean
at the
is
back?
now, where Power Gym is now under the dean.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, everything becomes a gym eventually.
I was there once or twice probably, but yes.
But yeah, I remember like I'd be playing there on a Monday and a Thursday. I'd be playing there till 3 a.m. I'd be getting up at 7, 8 to go work in a kitchen till 4 or 5.
Would you have had a drink back
No,
then?
I would. So like this is another
Yeah.
thing. I didn't really start drinking or partying or doing anything till I was probably in my mid to late 20s.
Wow.
Like I was really disciplined as a young fella. I think it was just like I was very privileged that I always had too much on to let me
F up.
yeah, to let me balls it up, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, so that's okay. Well, there's a lot to take in there from them bits, no, which is great, and I was super unaware of that. And it's funny that when you chat to someone in such a short space of time, you're like, you can start to picture pieces together of their DNA, love. Because what I fast forward now to see is like, I hear this sexy husky voice, and I see this organic, beautiful content from a very authentic person, and I'm like, I'm someone that tries to create content for my brand and shop, Cut and Sew, and it's like, what do you do? But when you started to do all of them jobs and you kind of put them together, because a thing that I tried to talk about was like, our first guest ever was Rob Lipsett. He had a job, and his whole thing is like, he had a side hustle, which was Lipsett Fitness. When he made more money from the side hustle, he left the actual job he wasn't mad about. But you seem to have kind of been like, I like a bit of this. I'm going to coach, bang me into the kitchen, doing gigs. And I remember DJing, I would nearly pay people to let me gig to get the foot in the door. And I think I used to get like 4 cans of Praski from the lads to play in like the chocolate bar. Or I can't think of the club, which is now Farrier Draper. What was that called?
That
Wax.
was Wax.
Or even
Spy,
after Wax.
Spy
or whatever.
It was a Lost Society.
Lost Society. I was like, and then they were like, we'll give you 50 quid to play for 4 hours. I was like, yes, that sounds like a really good
out,
deal.
12.50 an hour. Let's go.
I get a taxi in and out to Bray. It's
and the
probably
taxi's
100 quid.
I'm going to buy 8 drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then probably I didn't get too into drugs then. We won't get down that. But I was like, if I buy drugs, I'm really in trouble here.
Yeah.
But I'd go to work the next day and do it. So, yeah, our story is like, are you hustle driven, or, you know, are you pretty just like, you know what?
It's never about the hustle, man. Like, it's never
About
been
passion, or like.
It's never been about money. It's been about self-fulfillment and happiness.
Yeah.
Like, I've been happier when I've been broke than when I've been like doing really well. And there's been times where I've done very well, you know, and like it's like I've always, like, the thing that's always motivated me and still motivates me is not compromising or sacrificing a bit of myself to do what I do. Yeah. And like being able to, I suppose, communicate what you're about in a way that like helps you explore what you're about, but also doesn't take away from, I suppose, you know, listen, you've done things yourself where, like, you know, when you're doing whatever it might be a gig, it might be a corporate, it might be something.
I've done
and
that.
every second you're like, oh, like, this is shit. Like, you know yourself. Like, it's.
I used to do some corporate gigs and I paid cha-ching.
Yeah.
And I was like,
but
oh yeah, I have a funny story.
It's like, it is that thing where you're like, I try to not have that feeling ever. All I like, and that's all I try and do is like, I try
to not have that.
I just try and do the things that bring me joy. That when I like, man, like I feel lucky. Like, genuinely, I look at mates of mine who come back from work and they're fucking drained and they hate their lives and they hate everything. They take it out and they drink and they go out and do everything. They're like, oh, I'm hiding from this reality by doing this, and it's like, the worst I have is a day that's like a little bit stressful. I still love it. I still love it. I'm still happy to go do gigs. I'm still happy to do anything because I haven't pointed my ship in a direction that's leading me onto like emotional rocks. You know?
But also, I feel like, again, from two things, when I think of yourself, I'm like, this guy, I'm like, he's DJing, he's cooking or speaking at like Big Grill or like these things. If hopefully you did that.
Yeah, I'm hosting Big Grill this year, which is
hosting it, and then I'm like, hang on there, this guy's also working with really cool brands. You also, what is your title?
I'm brand director of Lovin Dublin.
Brand director, and I'm like, that is such a staple in an institution.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, your ship doesn't seem to be like docked, and I'm like, this is all I do. I think that's like freedom, and that's really, really amazing to inspire people, because they want to know, like, I know of this guy's name.
Yeah.
But it's not like you haven't stuck to one thing.
Listen, man, I think it'd be very arrogant of me to look at my life and think that it's applicable to anyone else's. Like, you know, I've grown up in a certain set of circumstances like that. I'm aware of my privilege. I grew up very middle class.
Yeah.
I can't say that like connections have got me anywhere. You know, it's like I've worked for where I've gotten to, but I think it's more just the message is like, don't do shit that leaves you feeling disgusting, and like, you know yourself. It is that kind of. I think there's a lot of people who think that the idea of sacrifice and the idea of maybe like doing something for the sake of something should cost a lot, and it's like, it's that process of finding joy in things and finding pleasure in things that will bring you to the next place, and being able to identify the rungs on the ladder, which are brilliant. And like, it's also in my head, and this might sound mental. In my head, I know we've talked about music, comedy, we've talked about cooking, we've talked about everything. In my head, effectively, they're the same mental process. It's all empathy. It's all doing something. It's giving something to someone.
Yeah, it's like providing. And
That's what it's always felt like to me. It's like, I get the same buzz off seeing someone eat something that I've made and then enjoy it, that I get off like a dance floor going off or an audience laughing. It triggers the same thing in my brain and gives me the same.
I didn't think of it like that. And the story I wanted to, you triggered something where it was like when you're doing a thing, you're like, ugh. I did corporate. I used to actually write graffiti, and I had a tag I got in conk. It's just as bad, right? I was a bit of a shite, and I got in trouble, like really bad trouble. Like I got a suspended sentence, ended going to the high court. Like this was, I have a criminal record, but I didn't get, my conviction was I got suspended sentence. I had to do community service in the Vincent de Paul, which was wild. There were like heavy criminals, scammers, guys that were like doing robberies. And I used to love writing my name on the wall and all along the dart line and seeing it and being like, this is very cool. Like some of the shit that I used to write, you can still see bits. I got the buzz of doing that, blah, 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 blah. And I liked the idea of the notoriety.
Yeah.
Then I obviously was a hairdresser, and then I kind of started to meet people and they were like, oh, you're an artist. And I was like, yeah, I'm an artist, right? I could splash this shit in the canvas. How much do you pay me for this art? And I kind of was a bit of a hustler, right?
Yeah.
I get stick because I'm lucky to be good friends with Macer, and he's like, you're a man, you would sell sand to the Arabs. But I dip in and out of things. And when I started to network and do things, you sound like you have a very organic story where mine wasn't. I was shown bits and then I was like, how can I do this and whatever, and how can I make money? But when I started to DJ, I remember doing really big corporate things because people were like, can you DJ? And I remember getting this gig in the Tree Arena in the Audi lounge upstairs.
Yeah.
They were like, it's 5 gigs, it's 500 quid. And I was like, what? This is like years ago. And they're like, yeah. I was like, what do I have to play? And I'm like, it was for, what's Bobby Gillespie's band?
Oh God, no,
Can't
tell you
think.
off the top of my head. Yeah,
it was like Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, Florence and the Machine, Snow Patrol, and like whoever Bobby Gillespie bands.
Nice, like sleazy indie.
Indie. So, but I was in the Workman's doing stuff, but I was doing cheesy stuff, and I was like, man, and I was playing in the cheesy part of that whatever that is Farrier and Draper upstairs, and they'd be like, can you play Rihanna? And the Grafton Lounge are like, have you anything more current? Because I was just playing like old house 90s and party tunes. But I was getting paid good money. I was like, man, I'm making really good money, but I hated it. I was like, I was counting the time, and I was like, and I started to drink, and I'd be like, oh, this is grand. I can have a pint. That will break up a half an hour. And I did a partying. But I remember thinking to myself, this isn't true. Funny that you said transmission earlier on. Good friend. I think we're both friends with Lorca Mac, or we know
I know Lorca. Like, I know you're probably a lot closer with him. Yeah.
But he was
a lot of
DJing
respect for everything that he's done,
in the Mez. And I remember going to Trev Raiders, and I was like, he goes, Shawnee, can you get down here and play some house music? And I was like, I left a gig in the Grafton Lounge, and I won't mention his name, this gentleman that worked there. He goes, I'm going to ruin you. You'll ever DJ this town again. We had a bit of beef for years. We're since friendly, and you know exactly who I'm on about. We used to manage it. And I left the gig because there wasn't one person in the Grafton Lounge. It's shut down now. It's called Lemon and Duke. And I left. And I went in, I didn't get paid, and I played like a half an hour set of like Maceo-plex. Like I was like, this is it. I've made it. I've made it, right? There's people dancing to the music I like. I just left this cheesy place, and I was like, oh shit, I want to try do the DJing. And then but I had to start at the bottom. I remember DJing in Joe Burger and Crackboard, and I was like, you're going to pay me €70 to DJ for 3 hours and give me free chicken? Yes, please.
Man, I remember those gigs.
Do you remember them?
The Crackburger or the Crackbird and the Joe Burger gigs, where it was like
that was such Joe's a legend.
Man, that was a golden time of Dublin, I think, where like
1,000,000%.
Where I like that was around. I think we're kind of similar generation. Like everyone is always like, oh, people look back at their time and think it's the best. No, I actually genuinely think that our time was the best. We had District 8, we had Hangar, we had a wealth of venues, we had the Twisted Pepper. I grew up with the very tail end of Tripod.
Yes.
And like, kind of looking at where I suppose Dublin was and where we...
Very good, leading us to a point of...
Yeah, and kind of like... Now,
we did have a great time.
We had a great time. And
pre-COVID, but I no one seems to remember what happened before COVID.
Sorry, man, I had a 4-year residency on Mondays in Hangar. And
which were rammed.
When you think about 4 years, that's... fucking 208 weeks-ish, right?
Okay.
And I'd say out of those 208 weeks, maybe 30 weren't sold out. And I was playing for like 5 hours a night in front of like 800 people. Every single Monday.
That's very relevant to people knowing your name and a lot of your thing, because they were younger and now they've grown up with you.
Yeah,
your
well,
name.
It's kind of like, it's interesting now looking at like people who were like 16, 17, going to Hangar in 2000 and like, I don't know, 16, 17, who now are like, have a couple of quid and go to restaurants. And now look at me for food advice or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's interesting because I can look at them and be like, oh, I've journeyed with them as well. Yeah. It's like, I'm lucky enough now to call those people my friends. I think that like, if you get into a position of like, thinking that you affected anyone's life more than anything. Like my philosophy in life, and this is a big thing, is just like, as soon as you start loving the smell of your own farts and drinking your own Kool-Aid, you're done. You're like.
So here's the thing, because I would be victim to, everyone knows that I partied and I used to use coke or cocaine.
Yeah.
Right? That's not for clickbait.
Man, like,
every gig, but I actually, when I got a few gigs, I was like, I remember DJing at Casa Bacardi, and it was really hard to get the gig. I was like, man, I'm such the right party DJ. And I was the first DJ on. Yeah. And there was nobody there.
Yeah, the opening stuff's tough, man.
It's tough, but and then I think I did it at Forbidden Fruit, and again there was nobody there. But I remember being like, oh my God, I was actually just happy to be on the bill and to go to a festival.
Seeing your name on the poster.
It's the best feeling.
That entrance to Casa Bacardi is nice.
It's the second best feeling, right?
Yeah.
And then the best feeling is when there's people there dancing, right?
Oh, yeah. Well,
right.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that will do it. But I was like, wow. And I remember DJing these gigs and playing the music. Like, I was like, it's not about money. I was like, it's so about playing music I like, but enjoying the vibe and vibing with people. Yeah. But then I obviously was like drinking my old Kool-Aid. I remember thinking like, I don't know what it was. It was a blurry time for me, but it's, I was thinking, hang on there. My main job is cut and sew. But then I was thinking, hang on there. I actually am a good DJ. I'd like to think. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can also do like a hobby as a passion and make money. I could be a full-time DJ. I'd probably be doing the shit I don't like doing now.
Yeah, but man, I think that, you know what, if you start putting things into boxes.
I know, I did. I think I did.
Like, I've seen so many people fall victim to it. I've fallen victim to it myself at times. If you start over-categorizing things that you don't need to over-categorize, like, why do you need to be like, this is my main job and this is my side hustle and this is what I do, and if I could do this if I didn't do this. It's like, just do the fucking thing, man. Just get on with it. Like, you don't have to be the business owner who also DJs. You can just be Sean who cuts hair and likes tunes. And like, there's no like not
like Shawnee the barista now.
But like, you know, there's fucking this business of self-categorization where people need to classify themselves.
I know.
For the sake of their own identity.
I don't call myself an entrepreneur, right? And people, it's funny when you call yourself a fucking pineapple if you want, or whatever. As you said, I try to be a bit more broad, but some people, it's like categorize and want to identify. Mm-hmm. And you know, when it's like your Instagram bio, that's a whole other podcast. But you know, it's like business owner. Yeah. You know, chef, DJ. But
man, there's nothing worse than like writing a bio for yourself.
I know that is like drinking your own Kool-Aid.
It gives me the ick for myself. But like, it's also, do you know what? It's like something that I've come to terms with. Is like, for a long time, I didn't allow myself to feel.
Let me just put this clear, right? You don't have a job title. Well,
no, no. My official job, like my 9-to-5 job title, is brand director of Lovin Dublin.
Amazing.
Which is brilliant.
Which is quite broad though.
Yeah, well, it's like, you know, it's kind of, it's great to be trusted with this legacy brand.
Yeah.
And also growing up in Dublin and genuinely actually loving this city.
And so much about it.
Giving a fuck about the city, its culture, the people who are within it, the businesses, the nightlife, what makes Dublin electric, and actually caring about that. It's cool to actually, you know, be trusted with a legacy brand and going, okay, talk about it. In the state of play that Dublin's in now.
How bad do you think Dublin is? Because I'm like,
it's Dublin's
VAT thing going up.
That VAT hike, man, is...
I've seen more places shut than I've ever. Like, it's
it's bleak at the moment, and it's like it's also like Dublin is kind of cannibalizing itself at the moment. Is that the support isn't there from the government? It's not there from the county council or the city council. It's not there. Like, the VAT rates are killing business. Like, I don't know if you saw the LVA put out a thing that 48% of pubs have said that their business has gone down since the VAT rates, because obviously pubs don't want to be charging you 7-8 quid for a pint.
It's gone up 50. The hike is, people might notice on the math thing, it's doubled. Like, so it's gone, it's gone up 50%. Half of 9% is 4.5%, and it's gone up from 9 to 13.5%. So when you break it down to people, it's like double. I'm like, that's a big chunk. If you break down that amount of money, even for us on a haircut, it's a big chunk.
But like, okay, you take away VAT, right? Okay, when was the last time you had a chocolate bar?
It was 2 quid, but probably yesterday.
Okay, so to give you an idea, if you're a restaurant, right, and you buy chocolate.
Yeah.
The price of chocolate has gone up 100% in the last 6 months. The price of chocolate has doubled in the last 6 months. The price of butter, the price of oil, the price of like stock staples that, you know, you can't cook without.
I seen a cost cutter on Angel Street shut down, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
how does a cost cutter that has a deli? When I was 15 years ago there, every day I was in buying a paper. I don't know why I was buying.
Do you know what? It's like, it's, I think, okay, we're sitting on Lord Edinburgh Street, the Fumbly down the road.
Cafe.
Ashling from the Fumbly put up a video, which is incredible. So Fumbly has been packed since the day they opened, and it's one of the most consistent, brilliant cafes in Dublin.
Yeah.
The
That's your neighbourhood, right? Is that Dublin 8?
It's Dublin 8, yeah. It's just, it's on Clonbrassil Street there.
Yeah.
But she came out and she said that, you know, like, we're full all the time and we're just about scraping a wage.
Imagine if they had
slow. But like, when you look at, but the thing that she said is like, there isn't a single farmer in Ireland who isn't receiving financial support. Like, when you look at the actual bones of the system, things are broken. And it's like, you look from that thing of like basic produce, livestock, dairy, right through your kind of manufacturing line, your delivery
costs are going up.
But like, if you were to actually pay a living wage and pay a fair wage to, and that cost was transmitted through into a restaurant, you'd probably be paying 30 or 40% higher than you are now. But if restaurants were to put that up to that, they'd be closed within a week.
Do you feel? I feel like I'm a bit of a campaigner within my industry. I don't know why we are paying. Well, the VAT, like a lot of my friends are like, why do you pay VAT when you cut hair? Like, you're not importing anything and you're providing a service. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know why. It bugs me. And I'm like, it's just gone up now again. And I'm like, now in my field, I'm a barber coach or a business coach. And I have never been busier with people. I'm lucky that they're coming to me. I'm like, man, if you think Cut and Sew is a really cool, brilliant brand. Yeah. Our wage costs are higher than ever. I'd say so, yeah. VAT, and we pay everything. We have 30 barbers. I'm lucky to have that staff. But I feel like all we're doing is paying VAT, PRSI, employees PRSI, and like, I'm like, everyone thinks you must be loaded. I'm like, no, it's not at all.
Man, I remember that, like, the reality of opening
isn't that at all.
Like, when I opened Antisocial with the lads on Francis Street,
I remember
with a couple of my mates. Don't open the bar 6 weeks before lockdown.
Was that how long it was?
6 weeks, man. 6 weeks.
I was in there in that period.
So yeah, but I remember the first time I saw a wage bill, and I was like, "Hang on, like, how much? Yeah, like, are you serious? Like, but he's getting 14 an hour. Like, how does that add up to this at the end of?
And you have to pay the government here, employers PRSI, which is 11%. I think so.
But you know what kind of fucks me off a little bit is that, like, our government, like our country is operating on a surplus. We have the money there. We've been in a surplus for years.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
you know a bit more than this, and
I'm not claiming to be an expert. I am not claiming to be an expert.
You're talking to the people on the street,
But you know, it's like the support isn't there, and like I think that, like, when you look at Dublin as a city. I think what's happening now, for example, in Coolock, right, where you look at a part of the city that has been genuinely neglected, that has been forgotten, where there's over a year's waiting list to get to mental health services, where GP waiting lists are the longest they are in the country, where there's poverty that goes beyond anything that's in the city, and nobody's actually supplying anything to them, and you're like, the money's there. The money is there to help communities that are marginalized, to help communities that aren't being taken care of, and nobody's doing it. We're in this really weird place, right, where convenience has become cheap, but convenience often isn't good. Why are people happy to go to, like, a major retailer and pay 17 cents for a bag of veg? If you're paying for 8 carrots and it's costing you 17 cents, and that's marketed, shipped, stored, and everything else, what's the farmer getting? You know, it's like, why has so much same with fast fashion. Why should a t-shirt cost you £4 shipped from fucking Bangladesh? Why should the fruits of someone's labor cost you that much? We're not actually putting a regular value on things, so we're not putting value into things. And, like, you know, not to go all fucking truth bombing on you. No. But it's like, this is the thing. Like, I don't mind spending money on something when it's really good. But,
so, like, what do you not value? So I know, like, when I see it, and we spoke to another guest who owns a restaurant, I won't say his name. Yeah. And I know you love that particular restaurant, and it's premium, and it's very special. It's someone that I know you've worked with or been in to help support, not maybe worked it, but I know you frequent there, and we spoke, he goes, oh no, Marcus is a good customer. Yeah. And I'm like, places like that are so special. If it's the Joe Burger thing, he had all these amazing, brilliant concepts. He had the steak place, the chicken place, the burger places, and I've forgotten the steak one he had, and it was amazing on South William Street. Oh my God, it was the best thing ever. And it just wasn't sustainable. All these burger joints opened up and taco shops opened up, and now I feel like everything has a bit of a buzz.
Yeah.
But without the likes of these cool independent places, they probably don't want to charge you more, but they're trying to just survive.
Yeah, man, but it's like that's
but
like,
go there because it's what would be your message to go to somewhere independent?
I think it's like, listen, unless you want to live in a city that's so homogenous and so, that's basically like you
Costa
just end up
Coffee.
going down to your local Costa, your local Wetherspoons. If you want to be able to go to your independent pub, your locally owned shop, your locally owned cafe, restaurant, anything like that, it's like, think about the cost of that. If it's a difference in 50 cents,
you're making a massive difference.
But like, if you're going to Starbucks and you're dealing with a multinational
Starbucks,
who
you can eat my ass, Starbucks. Never come in, bring a Starbucks into Cut and Sew because I hate them.
But there's like the difference of 50. They're a multinational. They're not worrying about rent.
No,
but
they don't give a shit. There's more people in there using their Wi-Fi.
If I go down to, if I'm in Stoneybatter or I go to Jolie or I go to Little Cactus near my house, like, I'm looking the owner in the eye. I know the fact that like the money the money I hand across the till and the thing they give me back, that exchange actually goes directly to them. That gets reinvested into the community. That pays for people who live in the area.
They could be going to a place me and you were DJing in, or our mum and dads could be working in a pub or a cafe.
I think like regardless of what you do, whether it's paying for a haircut or paying for a coffee or going anything, it's like if something is good, support it. And I think that's really important. I think
if it's good, support it.
If it's good, support it. And like, if it's good, figure out what good actually means as well. Because, it's like, there's this conflation between something being cheap and something being good. And it's something I see on TikTok all the time. Someone being like, this spice bag was only £8. It's yeah, man, but it's made of ground up rats and toenail clippings. Like, it's fucking like don't.
The food review of the lads, I know there's a trend, and I think I've seen some funny things. Do we really need another 20 or 30-year-old lad reviewing chicken wings?
Come here, it was the same way do we really need somebody else putting the fucking vocal stems from Say It Right over a trance tune? Or do we really need another 20-something-year-old reviewing spice bags? Yeah. Listen, shout out to those lads that are getting their bag. Love a curry on a Saturday night. But no, it's like, do you know what? It's like, it is that kind of race to the bottom. It's feeding the algorithm. And it's like...
Is it that TikTok brain where it's like, oh my God, there's a guy reviewing chicken wings and eating the chicken wings. Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, you're not making me want to go eat chicken wings at all. I'm just like, how many fucking spice bags places is there?
Yeah, but no, listen.
But do your thing. Yeah, I know they're hustling.
There's a couple of people who do that really well, but I think it's as well. It's like now social media is in a weird place because suddenly, size of portion and cheapness has become proportional to quality. And
so people are thinking.
People look at like
a big spice box,
a big feed, and they're like, that's deadly. That's deadly. I want that. I was like, man, that's more food than 4 people could eat. You don't want that. You eat that, you're going to fucking die. Like, that's fact of. And then there's also this weird thing, and I know you've seen it, where there's this relation between what people consider honest to being actually cruel. This algorithmic thing of like, if you leave a negative review,
it's going to be way more.
And like, you're like, I'm being honest. I'm telling the truth. I'm uncovering the snakes.
We got a 1-star review today. Your man goes, I'm just being honest. And I said, you're actually false in what you're saying. The haircut wasn't bad. You didn't complain about the haircut. You complained because there was a red mark on your neck from the clipper. And I was like, but he's given like 200 reviews. I do all of the reviews in Cut and Sew in the 6 shops. There's very few 1-stars. And I responded within 10 minutes. He got his haircut 2 weeks ago. He goes, man, why didn't you tell me 2 weeks ago? I could have just been like, hey, come in. Mm-hmm. You can use this to cool down the redness. Blah, 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 blah. And everyone's online, keyboard warriors. Oh, it drives me mental. But yes, sorry, people are...
there's this, like...
I was very livid because I was like, man, you're wrong and you're just giving an honest review.
I think, listen, it comes back to what I was fundamentally saying there. Where it's like, we are all part of the same community and there needs to be support there. And I think that when you get to that place of being chronically online and like you haven't gone out and you haven't...
Be in the real world, like.
You haven't... When was the last time you went out and smelled a rose? When was the last time you put your head in the Irish Sea? When was the last time you went and like baked a loaf of bread? When was the last time you like that kind of? When was the last time you talked to a stranger that wasn't online? And it's like people forget that, and suddenly they're behind their keyboards and they're like, everything's shit. I'm angry about everything. And it's like, you're not.
Do you know what? It's funny.
You're just frustrated.
I've fallen victim to commenting on fucking videos online. I'm like, and if I'm hungover, which is rare, but even if I'm tired, I'm like, I get angry online. I'm like, it's not healthy.
But anger is an unhealthy emotion, man. I think that like it's so easy if you remove empathy, and a lot of what we've talked about comes down to empathy. It's like doing something because you want to see someone else happy. If you remove empathy, which like I'm sitting in front of you, I can see your facial expressions. I can see how you react to things. If I said something horrible to you right now, I'd be able to see it in your face.
My face.
If you're sitting in front of a screen, if you're,
on your couch, comfortable.
If you're taking a shit and you're fucking on your phone, scrolling on TikTok, like I often wonder about. I know you had Cassie on the podcast, and like Cassie, like a friend of mine. Like I look at some of the comments that she received, and I wonder about the people who like. Yeah. Is this somebody who like they drop their kids off at school and they come home
and they're adults? A lot of them as well.
They're full ass adults, man.
Yeah.
They sit down their couch and they're like, right, tell you what. Fuck you. It's like
they're motorboat.
What is fucking losers, man? Who has time for that? Just get on with your own shit. Are you not busy enough with your own fucking life?
Go to the places you like and fucking.
Oh man, listen, I know I'm ranting a bit now,
but it's good to get it out because people need to know you're a bit of a very big voice, and I'm thinking even coming the whole idea of this has come to being like about supporting local.
Yeah.
Go in, and when you're going to buy a loaf of bread in maybe Bread 41 or go to Daddy's Cafe and you're like, oh, I see the guys who put the love into what the fuck we're making, what you're drinking and eating, and you can nearly see the expression like, thanks so much guys, see you soon. I love going into a cafe and I'm like, John, Paul, Mary, I can see you there. Same with Cut and Sew. We're falling victim to English barber chains coming over here and American guys, and I'm like, oh lads, we don't need any more of franchises that just looks like every city in the UK. We don't need, I'm nothing against, I love a Nando's, love like certain place, but I'm like a McDonald's, global institutions, cool, whatever. But I'm like, I think when I'm going out and people come to Ireland, I recommend them to places that are independent. They might have one or two chains, like what's that coffee shop? Hatch, love Hatch. I'm like, holy shit, the space you create is amazing. Yeah. The people you hire are cool. Love your coffee, love your little
I rejoice in like, okay, so you've got what, 7 Cut and Sews now?
Yeah.
So 7 Cut and Sews. I look at Dash. Barry's got two Dashes, probably more to come down the line.
The one on Capel Street. I'm like, that is the slickest place ever.
But this is what I look at. I'm like, in my head, Cut and Sew isn't a chain. It's something you've done out of passion. You've built it. It doesn't have an investor looming over it, or it's like, it's not owned by a vulture fund. It's that kind of like, and
that makes sense. It's not where just like open one up here, open up in Cork, open up in Galway. No, that's not the idea. It's like a passion project where I'm like brilliant if there's a place open and we can afford to do it, and it will add value, which they do add value to every area. They're each individually different. We're giving our community jobs. Yes, it's a business, but we don't make major money like people think. It's successful, but I'm like, it's so hard now. Like, it's the hardest it's ever been. But I'll continue to open them as long as I think it has value. If this wasn't here, this would be a phone shop, a vape shop, or a Starbucks or a Costa. We don't need any more of them shops in Ireland. You want, when you come in here, you start to the podcast, Shawnee, how's it going? When I'm cutting here for Saturday afternoon, the amount of people that walk past and that add value and see me and are like, there's Shawnee, that's the guy, the brains behind this. What a legend. Still working. I'm going up to the Lord Edward after I have to have a pint. Yeah. I've probably gone to a coffee shop either next door to us to support them. If I'm not here, if this isn't here, it damages the street. At the same way, if Michael's shut down, what a loss is that? Yeah. And we could speak about hundreds of closures, but my message or kind of, to bring the podcast kind of to a wrap. Yeah, of course. There's two things that I'm going to ask you something and give you a minute to think about it. I don't know if dangerous when focused means anything to you, and because I think you're a very motivational guy. You're very passionate, I can see from this. So I want to know, does that mean, or what does that mean to you in a second, but what would your message be to, if somebody captures this and we put it on the reel, your kind of message to Dublin to like every generation about supporting local? Have you got a little 2 cents about that?
I would say that realize that every single person that you deal with, be it a business owner or somebody working in a shop or anything, is going through the same stuff you are. And you might be having a terrible day, so might they. We're all just people at the end of the day. And having a bit of understanding, a bit of empathy will go a long way. And actually understanding what makes a business tick and talking to people, communicating and actually forging connections will go further than anything. And don't do it because you want to get a job or you want to get a hustler, you want to get an Instagram follower. Do it because you want to make a connection with the person. I think that's
real world.
In the real world. I think that, like, you know, that's furthering understanding, and it's furthering, I suppose, something that's going to make communities better and society better. And also, really, like, just because you don't like something or you do like something and someone else doesn't mean you can't be mates. It doesn't mean that, like, you know, if you're online and somebody's eating in a restaurant you don't like, don't be like, this is shit I hate. Like, because people do, man. Like, it's only dinner. It's only like, do you know, Assassination Custard around the corner? They were one of the, like, this iconic tiny little lunch cafe that did things completely by their own rules. They said something when they closed recently because they wanted to, and they were like, at the end of the day, it's only lunch.
Yeah.
It's like, what does it matter, man? It's like, we're all just on a big fucking rock.
We are on a rock, and it's
only lunch.
How small are we when I know?
It's only tunes. It's only haircuts. It's only, like, just like, you know.
I actually said in my review today, I was like, man, it doesn't need to be this deep.
Yeah.
I'm a really good lad. You literally can ring me now if you want, and I'd be like, how's it going?
Yeah.
I'll give you a free haircut if it was that bad.
Yeah.
The haircut was fine.
Yeah. But like that,
it's not that deep.
It's not that deep, man. I think, like, people get so focused on what they do that they forget what they are, you know. And it's like, I think fundamentally, like, you're not. Yeah, you cut hair, but, like, you're still a person behind that, you know. It's like, don't be a dick. I think, like, if there was one message, it's just don't be a dick, really.
And my last question, just to wrap it up, and we'll get this. Does dangerous when focused mean anything to you, or what comes to mind when I say it to you, or if you see it?
I think there is a real value to that. I think we're kind of coming from different ends of the spectrum. That, like, I found myself the most effective when I'm trying to reach that kind of, like, state of flow, and when I'm going to reach that state of, like, almost like broadening my focus to allow it all in. Okay. But then when I'm in that state, there's times where I feel bulletproof. But, like,
yes, I love bulletproof.
But like it's something that I really love, and I'm lucky to have done the work. I've done a lot of work to be able to tap into that.
Yeah.
But I think what people need to look at more than anything is, like, be focused for you. Be focused for what you do. Be focused for those around you. Don't get lost in the sauce. Don't get enamored by the smell of your own pits, because it's not going to do it. And, like, at the end of the day, it's only lunch.
It's only lunch. Marcus, thank you so much, man. That flew in. I think that just, like, was the quickest one ever.
Yeah, that went like that.
Everyone obviously can follow Marcus on his Instagram. Working with Lovin Dublin, we'll tag him below. Thank you for listening, and we can't wait to catch the full podcast.
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much.